big day set for you. Want to start off with a few brief announcements. I'm going to skip around a bit. First of all, our immediately local announcements here. So we have a presenter application form that is available. We'll put that in the chat. We also are looking for another leader here in the Tableau user group, leadership group. We've got our emails here. Just pick one and email us. We'll make sure the rest sees it. If you've got any interest in helping this community grow and improve, we would love to have your help. And Jim has a few broader community announcements and things to share. Jim, you want to go ahead into those?
Yep, I'm unmuted now. Hi. I hope everybody's having a real good day. Okay. A couple of things I want to share about the community as a whole. Tableau has just released a new community hub, and if you could just pull it up real quick, Nick, you've got it available there. This is the new community hub. They're really proud of this, and scroll down a bit. But this is your portal. This is the access to all the things that are going on in the community. Now, next month, we have the good fortune of having Stephanie Richardson, who is the vice president over this entire area. She's the vice president of community for Tableau. She's going to speak to us, and she's going to speak not just about this hub, but about the community as a whole and how you can become more involved in the community. Nick, we can go back to the first slide. Okay. I know there's a lot of people here in Nashville who are in the healthcare industry. I think Eric pointed out to me that there is a healthcare page or a portal strictly for healthcare. And if you scroll down on this, you can see that this is your access. And if you have any interest in any of these topics, this would be the place to go to network with other people who are involved in the same healthcare community. So it's I wasn't aware that was there until Eric pointed it out to me. The third thing I wanted to mention is I've just become aware there is a Spanish speaking TUG group. So if you are a Spanish speaker and you want to be involved with the Latin community or with the overall Spanish speaking community, this would be the place to go. Nick's going to have all these links in the chat, by the way. This TUG is all Spanish speaking. When you get there, everybody's speaking Spanish. The people who are running the TUG, Diego, scroll up just a little bit more. Scroll up a little more, please. Okay. Diego Parker's in London, and Paul is in Bogota, and they are two of the ambassadors also. Now we can go back to the first page. Okay, a couple things for job seekers. That first link there is Tableau's hiring. Tableau has a number of openings, and if you're looking for a job, go out to the link. You can take a look at what Tableau has open, what they're looking for. Something might fit you well. The second link, Tableau Jobs, is actually a subscription-based release. It comes out every Tuesday. As a matter of fact, I got one just maybe 2 hours ago. Every Tuesday, I get an email that lists all the jobs that they know of that are available, and that's on a worldwide basis. That's not strictly local. Yeah, Nick, you push the magic button. You do have to subscribe to it, and once you've subscribed to it, Alan Murray will send you a listing every Tuesday. But that's on a worldwide basis. I looked today. There's some openings in Cleveland, Chicago. JLL is still hiring. So if you're looking for an opportunity, that would be one that you want to look into. I'm aware of 2 Nashville-based jobs that are open right now. One's at Velocity Underwriters, and the other's at A.O. Smith. And those are two positions that are available here in Nashville. So if you're job searching, go out to the chat. We'll have those links in there, and maybe there'll be an opportunity for you. Now, this last one on the seminar series, that's something that I've wanted to do personally for a while. I've done a presentation in a couple of areas explaining just a little bit about my own background. I am not a data scientist. I am not an IT person. And when I came into Tableau, I had my challenges going from essentially an Excel-based system up to using Tableau and getting to where I was pretty proficient with Tableau. And I put together a series on the 5 steps that I had to learn to make that happen. I presented it a couple times. It's gone over fairly well. I'm going to make it into a 6-session seminar, and we're going to be sending out some information about that within the next month. Be aware when we do that, we're going to do it on a different platform. We're not going to do it on Zoom. We're going to do it on Remo. We wanted to try out that platform. We think there might be some opportunities to use it for some other things here at the Nashville Tug. But we'll be sending an announcement out that within a couple of weeks here. Nick, I think we're ready for Adam.
Okay. I will first jump over to our event page. Although you as guest, here we go. Just want to help everyone understand where we're at in our agenda and what to expect the rest of this meeting. So we've got the welcome and the community announcements we've just gone through. We're about to step into our community spotlight with Adam Mico. Eric Howard will be speaking on the row level security. Brian Moore will show us how to build better business dashboards. And then we'll have some closeout exercises, including a quiz at which the first place winner will get free Tableau training. So stick around for that. Just stop my share. Adam, if you would make sure you're queued up and ready to go. Adam is a senior data analyst for the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. He's a Tableau social ambassador, a Tableau featured author, Tableau public featured author in 2020. And in addition, he blogs weekly with Priya and mentors, and also participates in leadership teams for VizConnect, Mentoring Meetup, and Tableau Magic. And speaking of mentoring, that's what this is about today. And let's hear what Adam has to say. Go ahead, Adam.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Nick, and thanks for Jim and Nashville Tug for inviting me to talk about Mentoring Meetup Initiative. So the Tableau Data Fam, it's basically a community derived from our global community that's part of Tableau, and a lot of it's on Twitter and LinkedIn of people that love Tableau, and it ranges from Zen masters to the newest of the newest users. So as a result, a lot of people come into our community, and Tableau finds so many people each day, and so many new people come in that are really inspired by the product and really inspired by what the community does and wants to be able to be part of it. And part of what Mentoring Meetup is to help support those new users in our community and make sure that they're paired up with people that could really help them out, whether it's better design, understanding how to use data better, or networking and career advice. So there's a lot of things that we do to try to help people in our fold and make sure that they are part of the community that maintains. So here's our team. Our team is me, Brian Moore, who's speaking a little bit later. So it's kind of interesting they have him here. So I'm glad that he's here as well. Mark Brad and Brian Moore, as you'll learn, is a public ambassador. Mark Bradburn is a person that works for Tableau. Sagar Kapoor also works for Tableau. Sarah Bartlett is a Zen master and a social ambassador as well. And Vinod Kumar is a person that also is an ambassador too. So we all work in a variety of different initiatives. And what we learned because of mentoring false starts in the past. There's a lot of good programs in the past, but they didn't last very long. The problem is that it requires a lot of support, and that support needs to have not just one person, but multiple people that are experienced and skilled in leading initiatives that are long-term initiatives. And this fortunately brings together a lot of people in a safe space where we help provide matchings with mentors and mentees, and provide a little bit of support in the background, and a platform to verify and vet people that are both mentors and mentees. So this has been going on for about a year now, and we're up to 57 mentors, active mentors, mentoring 73 mentees. And we're currently doing inventory right now. So as a result of that inventory, and we'll get into this in a little bit later, but as a result of that inventory, we're looking and verifying people that are active and wanting to pursue a relationship with the mentor, and mentors wanting to pursue additional relationships with mentees. So I'm going to pitch a little bit about mentors and why people should mentor. The thing is that we have had about 250 to 300 people want to be mentored. It's a free program. We're always going to keep it free. We're not going to charge people for the service, and the mentors aren't going to charge people for their time. So there's going to be a lot of people that want to sign up to be a mentee and get trained by some of the people that's made it, veterans in the Tableau universe. The thing is that we have to take inventory of that and make sure that those people, and let me just jump to a different screen, and make sure those people are people that really want to be mentored and will be active, and spend quality time with the mentor, and really try to grow and learn from their mentoring relationship. Because a lot of people that sign up to be a mentor, they may not be active. They may just want a one-time consultation or be interested for a short period of time. So we're taking more inventory to make sure those people that are wanting to have a mentoring relationship are going to be more active with the community. So with that, we're trying to get additional mentors to help support and offer help to mentees. And the great thing about being a mentor, and I mentor 4 people myself right now, and Brian mentors a lot of people. And the thing I've learned personally is that it's perceived as a selfless act, but you learn so much from the relationship. It just means a lot for to you as somebody that may have come up and may have done pretty well in your own career, to have an opportunity to give something back to somebody and see them grow and excel in the community. So it makes me happy when I could witness firsthand their ability to excel in our community and get new jobs and whatnot. It's such a great feeling to see that. And that's something you don't really get an opportunity to do a lot, maybe in your workplace or whatnot. Maybe you work alone, maybe you're head of an analytics team, and you're doing a lot of stuff on your own and don't have really an opportunity to mentor people. So it's exciting to have an opportunity to mentor somebody that's brand new to the community and make sure that that they have the tools that they need. One thing that people always ask about with mentoring: do I have to be a professional expert and know everything about Tableau? Absolutely not. The one thing is that if you're an intermediate user, you generally know enough to help people along that are brand new, as well as find the tools and resources that need to be found in order to help those new users. So as long as you're in an intermediate level, which means if you have some sort of certification or you have a verifiable portfolio, it shows that you have the necessary skills to help people out, then it should be no problem, as long as your intent is to offer free training and do your best to help somebody come up in the best way possible. As far as having our people and having any negative feedback from our people as far as mentors and mentees, there really hasn't been any. The only thing there's been is a lack of further communication after initial consult. So there's been no harassing or people saying they're taking too much of our time and whatnot. Most of the feedback that we received from surveys that we recently taken show that the main thing is that people are very happy with their relationships and having the ability to work with somebody to help them along, because the community is so vast and there's so many resources out there. It's helpful to have somebody out there to kind of point you in the right direction and give you feedback as needed. And for mentees, if you're considering signing up to be a mentee, we do have a website, and that website generally has a form where you could sign up to be a mentee. The thing is that we have that form closed until March, until we end our inventory period. And when that opens up again, then we'll be able to start accepting mentees. But I'll show you in a second. There's a thing you could do in the meantime to be part of potentially the new cohort that gets us aligned with the new mentor. So where you could find us is a simple website called mentoringmeetup.com. So you could reach out to anybody on our team to access us, and you could go into our DMs on Twitter, find us on LinkedIn or whatnot. I'll be happy to talk to you about anything that you need to talk about. In the meantime, I'll show you the website real quick so you could just get a brief overview of what that website is about. Don't want to show that. So here's our website. As of today, we have 57 mentors. We're training 73 students. So on the top here is a link to being a mentor and wanting to be mentored. So if you select this link right here, it's just going to direct you to a form that you could access and fill out to be a mentor. We keep it in a database to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information on people that want to be mentors. If you select on I want to be mentored, you'll have a separate form. Right now it mentions we're taking inventory and not selecting new mentees. But if you fill out this form, it's a survey which will help us determine what our needs are for new mentees and possibly get you aligned with a new mentor and let you know when we have that form available for you. So it gives us information about what we need to help service for mentees and so forth. And additional things is that we're going to start building additional resources on here, talking about what our mentoring meetup is about. We have a charter and we have a blog. So it talks about our success stories and maybe new things that are popping up with mentoring meetup. It's not a very frequent blog or anything like that, but it gives you information to give you a background into our program and what it means to not only mentees, but mentors as well. Do we have any questions?
Don't see any questions in the chat. If at this time you'd like to unmute to ask your question, you can, or you're also welcome to chat your question.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thanks, Adam. If there are any late breaking questions, still feel free to ask them. And I'm about to lose my battery, and I don't think I like it. So next up, we've got Eric Howard. He is one of our very own Nash Tug leaders. He's also an IT leader, being a full stack analytics developer, and specializes in Tableau analytical products, which is very handy for us because we are specializing in Tableau as a user group. He does a lot of personalized dashboards, which, as you may know, if you know anything about row level security already, you need a lot of row level security to make personalized dashboards. So I'm excited to hear and see what Eric has to share. Let's welcome him with a virtual round of applause. And have at it, Eric.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this presentation on row level security with the Nashville Tableau Users Group. My name is Eric Howard. I've worked in IT my whole life, and I've been using Tableau since version 7. So I'm experienced. When I'm not working, I like adventure, exploring the wilderness and just being outdoors. And yes, that is my hot air balloon, but we've been closed since the pandemic started. It shut us down because there is no social distancing in my basket. So let's get started with the presentation today. So I'm going to talk about row level security and show it to you in action. First, I'll show you what row level security does to your data. Then I'll talk about the different row level security options available in Tableau and how to use each of them in a workbook. Today, we'll be working with this Star Wars data set. It was originally published by Diane Mitra on Tableau Public. It's an excellent data set for this demo because every movie line is a row of data assigned to a character from these 3 movies. So I have created an entitlements table that has the character as a user, their user ID, which Tableau server requires an email address, and then some entitlements, and I'll end up using the role for our role-based row level security. So let's see how this works. With role-based security, you have to be, well, with row level security, you have to be connected to a server. When you do, you'll see a user ID down here in the bottom corner, and I can click on that and impersonate any other user. So from that entitlements table, you saw Yoda has access to everything because he is all-knowing in the Force, and so does the Emperor. They see everything. But the lieutenants, like Leia, sees only her Alliance rows, and Vader would see only the Empire's rows, and then somebody like C-3PO would only see his data. So that's role level security, role-based row level security. So let's go back to this. Let me show you what that looks like in the data source. I'm running Tableau 20.3 because that's what our production server is running. I've got the relationship model, but I'm not using that for this presentation. The combined data source is what I got from that public workbook. And then I created the entitlements table and joined it to that workbook based on the character and user fields. So the blue lines are the combined, the yellows are the entitlements table, and then you've got your facts over here. To use row level security, you have to add filters that use the user ID functions. Right now I'm using the security policy. So if I remove that and look at strict row level security, you'll see I've got username equals user ID. And so if I enable that, you'll see that I have no lines in the Star Wars movies. So when I'm logged in as myself, I don't see anything. So you know it's working. If I log in as Yoda, then I see only Yoda's lines. So this is strict row level security with the user ID on each row. So each person only sees their data. So that's strict row level security. All right, so let's go. Remove that. Okay, and I want to be myself again. So Tableau server has 4 layers to their security model: server, site, workbook, and data security. Let's take a quick look at each of these and see which of them can be used for row level security. Server security has site roles, groups, and users. You can leverage groups and users in your row level security. As I mentioned, I'm connected to a Tableau server today. I joined the developer program and they gave me a free Tableau server on Tableau Online. So I've created users with all these Star Wars names. They're not real. I've created groups that we'll be using today too. So site security is the next layer of security you'll encounter once you're connected to the server. Site roles, groups, and users can be leveraged for row-level security. I've already shown you that. Once the server determines which level of access you have to the site, the next layer you encounter is workbook security. Workbook permissions mainly affect how a user interacts with your workbook. But beware, you can compromise your security by allowing users to download the workbook and edit it offline or edit it online. If you just use the default settings, which these are, when you publish the workbook, you're probably going to compromise your row-level security because the download data is a default and the web edit is a default. So you'll probably want to customize those if you're using row-level security. Once your server determines what your permissions are in the workbook, your next layer of security is the Tableau data layer security. There are two forms here. You have live data connection security and Tableau extract data security. Live data connections are too complicated to discuss in a 20-minute presentation. These are the three things you need to be concerned with if you're doing those. And if you're a Tableau developer, embedding Tableau, you'll probably want to use these with your app. But today we're going to be looking at Tableau extract data security, and we're going to look at row-level security, user filters, and entitlement tables. So let's get started. Strict username row-level security. This was the first form of row-level security in Tableau. It's all there was back when I started with version 7. With this form of row-level security, the user only sees their data. When you're designing your data model, consider including those user ID fields in your model. Now let's see how it works again. If I go over to the data source, actually, let's go to the lines. I can go up here, you can get to your data source filter by clicking on the data source and edit data source filter. And then I'm going to add the user ID as a filter, then go over here to condition and create username equals user ID.
Quick question on this. Say we wanted to include, like, for some viewers, they're able to see like the entire data set. Some are just able to see kind of like one column. Is there a way to like solve for that? Like, would we use the contains function? So it's like a string of all the people that are able to see it.
So you're wanting to limit columns?
Or to limit, like for all, like it looks like the way this dashboard's set up, when you click on like Yoda, it only shows you Yoda's data. But would there be a way where you could have it show like all of like?
We're going to get there.
Okay.
Save your question to the end, and I think it will become apparent what we're going to do. So that is strict row-level security with a username function equals the row ID. Practical uses of this would be an HR dashboard where you only want a employee to see their own data, or a patient care dashboard. If you have a dashboard that requires HIPAA privacy, use strict row-level RLS. The way I use it, I support a lot of surgeons, and I cannot get them to go to my dashboards on their own. So I use strict row-level security with subscriptions to create a personalized experience for them. It's one dashboard with strict row-level security for each user. And then I have a subscription to that dashboard for each of the doctors. And each month they get their own copy of that dashboard as a PDF in their inbox that they can then click on and go to the Tableau server if they want to interact with the data. And many do, but if I don't have that sort of push function, they won't take the initiative to go get it. And they really love it. They love the PDF. They can print it out if they don't want to go to the server. So it's a nice solution for my situation. Our next data security option is using the role level security with the create user function. So with this one, Tableau Desktop has a create user filter under the server menu option. It basically creates a set that you can add to a data source filter. The set definition uses server objects to filter that set. So let's see how this works. With this dashboard, I've got two things I'm going to demonstrate. One uses one of the server groups to
Can you hear me?
filter the data, and the other one
There we go.
uses users to filter the data. I'm going to ask for you to hold your questions till the end, okay? So if we look at the group sets,
There you go. Me on permanent mute. Give me a second.
I'm muting you, Michael. Please, please
Okay.
remain on mute.
Edit this set. So if I go into, I've still got the data source on, don't I? So let's go back to my data source. Edit that. Edit my data source filter. And remove that. Okay. So there's all my data. So now I can go in and edit this set. And I see the checkbox besides Empire and Rebel. So I've got these two groups on my server, and I'm filtering on the Alliance field or Alliance column in my data. So the Empire sees the Empire group and the Rebel sees the Rebel group. And if I wanted to create that from scratch, I would go to Server, Create User Filter. I would select the Alliance. That's what I'm wanted filter on. I would choose Empire, assign them Galactic Empire, choose Rebel, assign them to Galactic Rebel, and then that would create that group. Go to my data source again, go to Edit, Data Source Filter. I want to add my user group filter. I select all the options and OK out of that. And so since I belong to both groups, I see all the data. Yoda belongs to the Rebels, so he sees the Rebels. Vader belongs to the Empire, so he sees the Empire. But basically, everybody sees just their group's data. There's no variation between users other than that group setting. So this is really good when you have department level views that an entire department needs to see their stuff, but you don't want another department seeing their stuff. Everybody within the department needs to see the same thing, so you can do row level filtering on that group level, and that works really well in that situation. So let's go back there. All right. So with, again, our main goal is to have that role-based row level security. So you can approximate that with a user dimension filter. In this, I've got specific users set up to emulate roles. So General Akbar sees all of the rebels. C-3PO only sees his data. The Emperor sees everything. When you're using this type of setup, if I wanted to give Obi-Wan some permissions, you can see he doesn't have a check mark beside his name, so he hasn't been set up yet. I want him to be a rebel leader, so I will copy Akbar, who I've already set up with those permissions, and now he has the rebel leader permissions. If I OK out of that, go to the data source filters, I remove that one and add the user dimension filter. I select everything and it will pare it down when they log in. Now, if I go look at Yoda, he sees everything. Obi-Wan only sees the Rebel data, and C-3PO only sees his data. So this is managing or creating role-based row-level security through a user dimension filter in your data. This would be good for small businesses or people who don't have SQL servers or something on the back end, really big things to play with. The downside of this is you have to edit the workbook, change your security settings, and then republish it to server every time you have a change in your security model. So it's very labor intensive. It's not recommended by Tableau, but if you're a consultant for a small business, it's hours every time they need a change to their security model. Just saying. So now the coup de grace of the demo. We want to look at data security using a security policy. The current state of the art creates role-based security with a security policy. You do this by joining an entitlements table to your data set. And with Tableau's new calculated join options, the possibilities are really endless with these entitlements. So let's see how that would work. Again, let me show you. You would join your entitlements with a inner join so that only the rows that are in your entitlements get pulled back to and join with your data set. I've created a calculated field here to emulate my policy. So in this calculated field, it says, if they're a member of the all group, which I have these groups out on my Tableau server, then they get true, which means they see all the lines. If they're a member of the Rebel leader group and the data has alliance, then they would see the Rebel rows. If they're an Empire leader and the alliance for that row is the Empire, they would see those rows. If they're not a member of those groups and they're just a member, then they would see their own rows. You could make this an else statement so that everybody would just fall through and see their own rows if you wanted to do that. So now we go to apply this, edit the data source filter, remove that one, and add the security policy. For this one, you just want to keep the true rows and say, okay. And I got that null because I was logged in as C-3PO. But here we are seeing everything with this. Again, Yoda sees his stuff. Vader sees all of the empires, and C-3PO only sees his rows by using that security policy. So I will say beware of faux security. As Tableau introduces new features, a secure workbook online may become insecure, so be vigilant. When I first started this, you could not edit your workbooks online. So it didn't matter what variables you had here, they couldn't get to them and change them. Up until recently, you couldn't edit sets online, but I believe that's changed now. So you really got to be careful with these upgrades as they're coming along. They're getting more and more to having a desktop-like online experience. So make sure you secure your workbooks from being downloaded and altered offline, secure your sets and calcs from being edited online, and secure your entitlements tables wherever they exist, whether they're an Excel spreadsheet or a SQL Server table or such. The industry best practices for your entitlements table is to use a SQL Server that has built-in row-level security and uses that pass-through authentication. So when you get to this screen, the user logs in and only their rows are returned in this entitlement tables and are joined. So they really can't get in and change anything or hack anything on your workbook. It all just gets linked and they only see the rows that they're supposed to see. Okay, so wrapping it up. I would really love to share this workbook with you, but since it's tied to my Tableau development server, I can't do that. You wouldn't be able to see anything. So I created a Tableau public workbook that simulates that security with parameters and sets. So you can go download this. There's a full version of this presentation on the tabs for that. If you're really interested in doing the entitlements table, I would recommend that you go read this white paper. It's very detailed on how to use entitlements tables and all the options that are available with the joins. The server security help is also a great resource to go check out and keep up to date on what the current level of the resources are. So again, thanks for your time today. That's all I have. And Nick, back to you.
Thanks, Eric. There are a couple of questions. I understand you might not have a setup to demonstrate or might not be ready to speak to it, but I'd still like to ask and see.
Sure.
One is, and I remember experiencing this myself, that in the past when using row level security and extracts, there'd be a lot of duplication of rows, right? Because if you had, as the example says, if you had 10 rows of data and 10 users, and all 10 users had access to those 10 rows, you'd end up with 100 rows of data because you would be joining every user to every row, and it would be like doing almost like a cross apply.
Yeah, in the old version with strict row level security, you had to what they called explode the data, and it was basically sort of a cross join that took all the users and replicated it for all the rows, and then they would see their rows. If you created an extract and published that to the server, they had really good compression. It's just like if you go into Tableau server and you duplicate your data source, you really don't increase the size of your data source or by 2. It's just a copy. So the worst I ever saw was like a 1.2 increase in my replication. But now with entitlements tables, it's just basically the data, and then I do the joins so that they see what they need to see. And since it's sort of since SQL Server 2016 came out, you could do row level security with that. I believe Oracle has had it built in for a long time. And so you're really only getting back a handful of rows from that entitlements query. So it's a really quick live connection. And so you connect it to your data, and it's pretty quick without it really exploding the data like you used to do.
So are you saying that with what you've implemented behind the scenes, you are effectively duplicating the rows?
I am not duplicating rows with an entitlements table.
Okay, cool. And then the one that's related to that question would be, let me read this a bit. Would the new features of the logical model and relationships make this even easier or possible, or is row level security complicated by relationships?
You need to be careful. You would join, let me go back to this. If you use relationships, you want to join not at the relationship level, but you'll have sort of one primary table that everything else joins to. And so you want to use your entitlements table to join to that primary table. For me, I've got a table that unions a bunch of stuff together. and I join that entitlements table to it. And then I've got some relationships of sort of extended dimensions and facts that I'll join to that combined thing. So you can definitely use this with a new relationship model, but you want to join to that primary table and let that one table drive your security. I suspect if you had multiple primary tables that you would have multiple entitlement table joins. And I mean, I guess you could do that, but you want to join at this lower level, not at the relationship level. Okay.
Gotcha. There's a couple of other questions. I think in the interest of time, we need to move on. The next
Okay.
presentation is 40 minutes, and we want to leave time for the quiz. One I will touch on super brief that I think is just a topic for another time to explore is column level security. I think we inadvertently brought that up and somebody expressed interest in it. And I don't even know if it's possible in Tableau, but I think we should research that and see if we can find somebody to present on it if it is.
Okay.
And there was another question that, again, we don't have time to cover it right now, would be Active Directory, but it's a lot of the same principles. It's just a different table to connect to, right?
I mean, the way that I use Active Directory is through the server group memberships. So I would have Active Directory groups when I go to add a user or add to groups. I could make them Active Directory elements, members of these things, if your server is set up correctly. But I'm not a server administrator at work, so I haven't played with that. And I haven't tried linking this to Active Directory.
And with Tableau groups or Active Directory groups on the server, I've played with the is member of function for those user.
Yep.
And
that works well.
Calcs, you know.
Yep.
But those are pretty handy. So I will invite you who might be interested in just Googling that and seeing what the is member of does. But yeah, let's.
I had a question. I was curious of like of the view you have it in desktop where you can select a view, a user, and then you see that version. If you then export that as a TWBX, will that only include the data that user is allowed to see?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, it filters it at the data level. So when you're using that, when you do that data source filter, what is presented to the workbook is only that set of data that's the result of the filter. There's nothing, you know, all the other stuff is left behind. So they cannot download it because it really doesn't exist in their workbook.
Okay, so this could also be used, like in my case, I'm thinking of using it to like send people Tableau reader files that might necessarily not a license, but I want a permission version.
I use Tableau Reader, but it broke back about a year ago, and it won't connect to the server and pull the usernames like it used to. Or if they fixed it, I haven't tried it again in the past year. So Tableau Reader really needs to be a standalone workbook from what I experienced. Like I said, it used to work, and would connect to the server and do the filtering based on the users. But then they just started getting errors when they launched the workbook that they couldn't connect to the server. It won't do that anymore. I'm not sure why, and I didn't look into it. By that time, we had a development server, so I put stuff on the development server for them to look at if I'm needing a small group of people to look at something.
Cool. Well, thank you, Eric. You clearly put a lot of time into this and thought, and this was just well done all around. I thought I knew what there was to know about row level security. You taught me some things that I need to go and research and try out. So
Read that white paper. It's very eye-opening on what you can do.
Cool. If you get a chance, maybe could you put that URL in the chat for everyone?
Sure.
I'll begin handing this over to our next speaker. So if you guys are getting a little tired, a little worried, stretch because you need to hold on. There's Moore, M-O-O-R-E, Brian Moore. He's a senior data viz and analytics consultant at Clear Intelligence. He's got a lot of props to his name. He's a part of that Tableau mentorship initiative that we heard about earlier, as well as a co-leader of the Boston Tug. And he also serves as a Tableau public ambassador. So that we just got an all-star cast today. And this is building better dashboards through interactivity, one of Tableau's key features, I would say, and lots of ways to go about it. So let's see what Brian has to share with us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today, and thank you for that introduction. My name is Brian Moore, and I'm going to be talking about building better dashboards through interactivity. So Tableau has some really just incredibly powerful tools for interacting with your data. So I'm going to be sharing some tips and tricks for leveraging those tools to design dashboards that are more flexible, more engaging, more powerful, and really just a lot more fun to use. So I'm going to be going through everything pretty quickly, but all of the tips that I covered today are written out in a really detailed blog post on sonsofhierarchies.com, and I'll drop the link in the chat right after the presentation. All right, so raise your hand if you've ever been in a requirements meeting that looked something like this. So some of your stakeholders want a high-level overview showing the overall state of the business. Others want a lot of detail and different cuts of the data to be able to answer very specific questions. I'm sure most of you didn't actually raise your hands because you're watching this at home, but I'm sure many of you have experienced something like this in the past. And oftentimes what you end up with is just this monstrosity that has, 15 dashboards that took weeks or even months to build, and a short while later you realize that nobody's actually using it. So it's too busy and complex for the people that wanted a high-level summary, and for the people that wanted a lot of detail, the questions they were trying to answer a month ago aren't the questions they're trying to answer today. So I'm a huge proponent of self-service analytics. So rather than building somebody a dashboard that explicitly answers the questions they're trying to answer today, I'd rather provide them with a tool they can use to look up those answers and any other questions that might come up in the future. And that's kind of what this session is about, tips and tricks for building really flexible dashboards. All right, so here is kind of a basic KPI dashboard that we'll be using for today's session, and I'll just start with a quick demo. So first off, we can filter the dashboard using these two bar charts off over here to the left. So we can click on a region to filter the dashboard by region, or we can click on a subcategory to filter the dashboard by subcategory. And using actions to filter your dashboard, it not only looks nicer than quick filters, but it's better for performance and just provides a much more satisfying user experience. There are several methods for doing this. You can use filter actions, set actions, parameter actions. I tend to use parameter or set actions just because it gives you a little bit more flexibility, and you can reference those selected values in like calculations and in worksheet titles and things like that, which you're not able to do with filters. You'll also notice that when I click on one of these marks, you don't get that kind of weird default highlighting that normally happens in Tableau, that kind of washed out gray color. Here, the non-selected marks just kind of fade into the background. So I'll show you how to do that as well. This next section is kind of the meat of the presentation. So this is a trick that can really add some flexibility to your dashboard, and it's related to these bands up here. So I use bands all the time in my business dashboards just to give a quick prominent view of the metric totals. And I usually like to include some kind of growth indicator as well. So here we have these up and down arrows showing the growth or decline versus the previous period. But what you can also do with these bands is use them to drive actions that change your entire dashboard and let your users do a deep dive into each of the metrics. So right now you'll notice that all of these worksheets are measuring sales. But if I click on profit, the entire dashboard updates, and now all of these are measuring profit. Same thing for units sold and on-time shipment percentages. Something else that I have in this dashboard, and it's detailed in the blog post, but I don't think we're going to have time to cover it today, are these scroll buttons down here. So when you have a dimension that has a lot of values, displaying all of the values with the scroll bar can really hurt performance, especially if you thousands or tens of thousands of records. So a common practice is to limit it to the top N records. So in this case, the top 10. But what if you want to see the next 10 or the 10 after that? So I have these little buttons here that let you scroll through the records without hurting performance. Also, personally, I think it just looks a lot nicer than the scroll bar along the right. And again, provides just a better user experience. And then finally, anytime you're building a dashboard that has a lot of interactivity, it's important that your users know how to use it. So that can be a huge barrier for adoption and one of the more common causes for low usage on a dashboard. So training is important, but you may not always be around to train your users or to answer questions. So I usually like to include a little instructions overlay like this. So the users can just come, click on it. You can see all of the areas in the dashboard that you can interact with and kind of what you can expect from that interaction. All right, so that's all I'm going to cover today. So this is kind of a baseline model that I use for a lot of flexible business dashboards. It can support users from different departments and from varying levels of the organization. But this is really just a jumping off point. There's so much more that you can add to your dashboard to make it even more flexible and more powerful. But for now, we'll focus on these few things. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to try, I know we're running short on time. I'm going to try to leave a few minutes at the end for questions, but if we do run out of time, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'd be happy to answer any questions we can't get to. All right, so on to our first tip. And here we're going to filter the entire dashboard with a parameter action using this region worksheet. So I'm going to start by going to my region worksheet. And I'm going to create a calculate. First I'm going to create a parameter, which is called region parameter. In the interest of time, I built all of the parameters and calculations ahead of time, just because I wouldn't have time to build them from scratch, but I'll go through them all as we're working through this. So here I just have a region parameter. It's a string type, and I have the current value set to the word all. The next thing we're going to do is create a calculated field for our filter. So this is called region selected, and it's just a Boolean calc that's checking to see if that region parameter equals that default value of all, or the region parameter equals a specific region. So now I will go to one of the worksheets that I want to filter. So we'll start with this subcategory one. I'm going to drag that region selected field onto the filter shelf, filter on true. Oh, it looks like I already had that. And I'm going to go to apply to worksheets, selected worksheets. And here I want to apply it to every worksheet except for the worksheet that's driving the action, which is this tip one metric by region. So hit OK, then I'll go back to my dashboard. So now the filter is in place. Now we just need to add a parameter action to update that parameter. So I'm going to go up to dashboard, actions. I'm going to add an action. It's going to be a parameter action. In the source sheets, I'm going to select that tip one metric by region. Also, just a quick tip, not sure if you're aware of this, but to bulk select or deselect these, you can just click and drag to highlight all of them and then click the checkbox. So I'm going to select just that tip one metric by region. I want to update the region parameter, and I want to pass my region field to that parameter. So hit OK. So now when we click on one of these regions, you can see that our whole dashboard filters to that specific region. Okay, so we have the filter working, but there are still a couple of issues. You see, first off, we have this kind of default highlighting that Tableau does, that washed out gray. So it doesn't look terrible in this dashboard. It kind of matches the color scheme, but that's not always the case. And also look what happens if I click on this mark again. So now there's a filter applied. We're filtered to that central region, but there's nothing telling the user that the filter is applied. So that can be pretty confusing. With parameters, unlike set actions or filter actions, you can't just click again to remove the selection. Tableau actually did introduce that recently, but it's a little bit buggy. If you click anywhere else in your dashboard, it's going to remove the selection, and we have some other interactivity that we want to add, so we don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do instead is create a calculated field to address that. So here I have a calculated field called region remove. And it's just saying if the region that we click on is the value that's already in the region parameter, then set the parameter back to all. Otherwise, use that selected region. And I'm going to drag that to detail. I'll go back to my dashboard. Now I'm going to edit my action. And instead of passing the region field, we want to pass that region remove field. So now I can click once to filter. And then I can click on it again to remove that filter. All right, so the next thing we want to do is tackle that kind of default highlighting. So I'm going to go back to my worksheet. And I'm going to create a calculated field. I just called it HL for highlight. And it's just going to be a blank value. I'll drag that to detail. Go back to my dashboard. I'm going to add another action, and this time I'm going to add a highlight action. Under my source sheets, I want to select just that metric by region worksheet, and then I'm going to do the same under the target sheets. I want to run this on select. Under target highlighting, I'm going to choose selected fields and choose my highlight field. So now when we click on one of these, see, we're able to filter the dashboard and we don't get that weird default highlighting, which that trick, essentially what it does is it basically just tricks Tableau into highlighting every value instead of just the selected one. Okay, so at this point, you still can't really tell which region is selected other than this thin black bar. So we're going to take this one step further and we're going to use color to address that. So I'll go back to my worksheet. I'm going to use that region selected field that I had created earlier, which is just the region parameter equals the default value, which is all, or the region parameter equals a specific region. And we're going to drag that to color. Then you can update these colors however you want. So I have the true value set to that kind of default baseline blue. And then for false, I set it the same as the background color of my dashboard. Now, when I go back to my dashboard here, you can see the selected mark applies the filter, retains that blue value, and then all of the other marks just kind of fade into the background. And then you can repeat this same exact process for the subcategory. All right. So now onto the KPI selectors. So there's kind of a lot to these, but we're going to go through them step by step, starting with just kind of a plain band, which is the labels and the values. I'm going to go to my sales band first. And for each one of our bands, we're going to create a calculated field. So here for sales, I have a calculated field. It's just called sales, and it's just the word sales in quotation marks. Same thing for profit. And same for quantity and shipping. So on each of our bands, we're going to drag the appropriate kind of text selector field onto detail. So here I'll drag the sales field. Then I'm going to go over to my profit band and drag the profit. In the interest of time, I'm only going to update these 2 bands, but it's the same exact process to do it for all 4, but it'll just be a little bit faster to just stick to these 2. All right, so next we're going to create a parameter for our KPIs. So I have a parameter called metric select. It's going to be a string parameter. Here I have the 4 values that align to the 4 calculated fields that I just created. You could also, under allowable values, you could set this to all. The reason I used a list is because after I built it, I wanted to alias a few of the values. And this was an easy and quick way to do that. Okay. The next, we're going to create a calculated field that represents whatever measure is selected in that parameter. So I have a field here called metric calc. This is just a case statement. So case when that parameter that we just looked at, when that equals sales, then take the sum of sales. When it's profit, then sum profit. When it's quantity, sum the quantity. And when it's shipping, I have this other aggregated calculated field that I previously created. So now in each of our worksheets, so starting with this region one, we want to use that metric calc field. So rather than having just sum of sales or just sum of profit, we're going to use that metric calc. So when we change that parameter, these values are going to change. So for your bar charts, it's going to be on columns. For the area chart here, it's on rows. For the map, it's going to be on color, and so on. And then lastly, we need to add a parameter action for each one of our bands. So when we click on this band, it's going to update that parameter. So I'm going to go to dashboard, actions. Here we'll do our first one called select sales. We're going to select our sales band. We want to update the metric select parameter, and we just want to pass the word sales to that. And we're going to do the same thing for profit. We'll call this select profit. We'll select just our profit band. We want to update the metric select parameter and pass the word profit. So now if I click on profit, you see that all of these worksheets changed to measure profit. When I click on sales, they all update to measure sales. So we're able to see that KPI in the entire dashboard based on those clicks. But a couple other things. First, we get this weird blue highlighting, which again doesn't look terrible in this dashboard because it kind of matches the color scheme, but that's usually not the case. And let's see. Actually, well, let's address that first. So in the previous tip, I showed you how to use a highlight action to get rid of that. But let's see what happens when we try to do that with a text mark. So if I go to dashboard, actions, and edit my highlight action, and add those 2 bands to it. See, now when you click on it, not only does it not get rid of the blue highlighting, but it highlights the other ones yellow, which is worse than where we started. So that highlight trick, it's great. It works really well for bar charts, but it does not work at all for text marks. Also doesn't work for area charts, and there's a few other limitations as well. So I'm just going to go back in and remove that. Okay, and then I'm going to show you another way to counter that kind of default highlighting. So let's go to our worksheet here, and I'm going to create 2 fields just called 0 and 1, or 0 is just going to be the value of 0. And our 1 is just going to be the value of 1. I'm going to drag both of those to detail. Go to my profit worksheet and do the same. And I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And I'm going to add a filter action. We'll call this sales highlight. Under the source sheets, I'm going to select just my sales worksheet. Under target sheets, rather than selecting it from the list here, I'm going to select it from the dropdown. I want to run this on select. And under target filters, I'm going to go to selected fields and add a filter. And here I'm going to choose that 0 and 1. And then I'm going to repeat that for my profit. So here we'll select the profit band, and I'm going to choose the profit band from the dropdown. Run on select, under selected fields, choose 0 and 1. And now when I click on these, you see we no longer get that weird blue highlight box. All right, but similar to the bar chart, now we're not able to see which of the metrics is selected. And once again, we're going to use color to remedy that. So let's go to our sales band. I'm going to create another calculated field for each of my KPIs. And it's just a simple Boolean calc. So for sales, it's just going to say that metric select parameter equals sales. For profit, it's just going to be equals profit. And it'll be the same for the other two bands as well. Now in each of our bands, we're going to take the appropriate field and we're going to drag that to color. Now when the sales is selected, I have this set to be that kind of default blue. If I was to change that to another metric, I have it set to this kind of lighter gray color. I'm going to go to profit and do the same thing. Let's drag that to color. When I go to my dashboard, let's see, when sales is selected, that'll be blue. The other ones will be gray. When profit is selected, that one will turn blue and sales will turn gray. You can take this one step further. So I'm going to take that same field, that Boolean calc that I just created. I'm going to hold Control and drag it to text. I'm going to do a little bit of formatting here. Do the same thing on profit. And now we're giving some instructions to the user. So when sales is selected, it's saying kind of explicitly that you're viewing profit. When you click on sales, this will say viewing sales, and the other one will give the instruction to click to view profit. And how I did that, so this was just a Boolean calc that has a true or false value. But if you go to that calculation, right click and go to aliases. So when this is true, I aliased it to display as viewing sales. And when it's false, I aliased it to display as click to view sales. And the same thing for profit. So now when sales is selected, this is true. This will say viewing sales and it'll turn blue here. And then finally, in each of my headers, I'm just going to double click and I'm going to insert that metric select parameter. It's white text, so you can't really see it. But that's going to populate that sales value there. We'll do it here too. So now when sales is selected, this will say sales by region. When profit is selected, it'll display profit by region. All right, so now we're going to keep going a little bit farther with those Kpi Selectors. So one issue with kind of using this one chart to display multiple different metrics is that these metrics have different number formats. So sales and profit are currency, units sold is a whole number, and on-time shipments is a percentage. If we just use that metric calc on our label, we can only assign one format to that. So there are a couple ways that you can kind of dynamically format these, but I'm going to share the one that I think gives you the most control. So let's go to our region worksheet. And I'm going to create another calculated field for each of my bands. So starting with sales, I have this field called label sales, and it's just saying if that metric parameter equals sales, then return the metric calc value, and then otherwise it'll be null. Same thing for profit, and then the same for the other ones as well. Then for each of these fields here, I'm going to update the default properties. So for profit, I'm going to right click, go down to default properties, go to number format. So I set this to currency, 1 decimal place, and I want it to display in thousands. I did the same for sales. For quantity, I want this as a whole number, so 0 decimal places. And for shipping, I have this set to a percentage, 1 decimal place. And I'm going to drag all 4 of these onto my label. And I'm going to remove that metric calc. Now I'll go to the label. I'll make these darker so you can see them. And I'm just going to bring these all onto the same line. So they're right next to each other. I'll change that back to white. Now when I go to my dashboard, see when sales is selected, we have that currency format. Same thing with profit. When I click on units sold, it's a whole number. And when I click on the on-time shipment percentage, it's a percentage. And the way that works is essentially the null values don't take up any space, and only one of those 4 values will ever be populated. The other 3 will always be null. So that one essentially just moves to the front of the line. All right, so one more thing to consider is whether or not the same chart type would be applicable for all your different metrics. So in this case, an area chart, is probably a good choice for sales, profit, and units sold, but probably not a great choice for displaying the on-time shipment percentages. But the good news is we can use some of the work that we've already done to swap charts depending on which KPI is selected. So the first step here is to create both of your views. So I have this area chart that I'm using, or that I want to use when those first 3 metrics are selected. And then I have this kind of sparkline chart that I want to use when the on-time shipments is selected. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to drag out a floating horizontal container. I'm going to do a little bit of formatting on this. So you see on all of the worksheets in this view, I have a white border and I have this background set to white at 30% transparency, which gives it that kind of light blue effect there. So I'm going to do the same here. Do a white border, white background at 30%. And I'm going to remove that formatting from this one since I'm going to be placing it into the container. Then I want to drag it into my new container. And I'm going to place that container where that worksheet was previously. Okay, and then I'm going to take my other kind of alternate sheet. I'm going to drag that into the container next to it. Get rid of all of this. Hide the title. All right, so now we have both of the views on the dashboard, but we only want to display one at a time. So I'm going to go to my shipment sheet and I'm going to create a calculated field. I called it sheet swap filter, and it's just a simple Boolean calc that says our metric select equals shipping. I'm going to drag that onto my filter shelf, and I want to filter on true. So you can see when the on-time shipment is selected, this will display. When anything else is selected, there's going to be nothing there. I'm going to take that same calculated field on my other worksheet. And here I'm going to filter on false. So you'll see in this one, when any of these are selected, it'll display, but when the on-time shipment is selected, nothing will display. Then go back to my dashboard. And because both of these worksheets are in a container, when one of them doesn't have any data, it's going to collapse and the other one's going to expand to fill that space. So when we select any of these three metrics, we have our area chart. And when we select this last one, then we get our sparkline chart.
Brian, I think we should invite you back for like going through how these decisions are made in a business context, like the decision-making thought process behind how to arrange these elements and make these kinds of decisions. Like knowing how to do this stuff is great and super important, but then like how to tactically and strategically put those together to make a great picture like you've done that makes sense for end users, I think is a whole nother presentation.
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to come back. Okay, so do we have time to go through this last step? It only takes a couple of minutes. This is for that kind of instructions overlay. Should I keep going or do we need to wrap it up?
I really want to see it.
Okay, I'll try to go through pretty quickly. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to copy an image of our dashboard. So if you go up to dashboard, copy image, I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to open up PowerPoint and go to a blank slide. The first thing we need to do is set the size of our slide equal to our dashboard. The really nice thing about working with Tableau and PowerPoint is that 1 inch in PowerPoint is exactly equal to 100 pixels in Tableau. So here our dashboard is 1400 by 900. So I'll go to design, slide size, and I'm going to set the size of this slide to 14 by 9. When I paste that in, you can see it fits perfectly on the slide. Oh, change the design. Okay. Then I'm going to insert, go to shapes. I'm just going to put a square out here. Set this equal to the size of the dashboard. I'm going to fill it black with no outline. Go to right click, format shape, click on fill, and I'm going to set the transparency to about 20%, just so you can still see through to the dashboard. Now you can start designing the instructions. This is really up to you how you want to do it. One thing that I do pretty frequently is just kind of box in the areas that are interactive. So go no fill, we'll do a white outline, and then you can just edit the text to add instructions. You can say, click here to filter by region. You can copy that down to these other ones. Just to save time, I have one where I've already added all these instructions. So all we need to do is first, I'm going to send this black square to the back so I can get to the dashboard. I'm going to delete the image of the dashboard. I'm going to highlight all of my objects here and group them, and then just save this as a picture. So I'll save this as overlay. I'm going to go to my dashboard. I'm going to drag out a floating container. I'm going to set the container equal to the size of the dashboard. So starting at 0, 0, it's going to be 1400 by 900. I will drag an image into the container. Choose my overlay. Get rid of the outer padding. And I'm going to select the container. Go to add show hide button. Let's bring this over here. And we'll edit our button. So when the item is shown, meaning the instructions are on the screen, we'll keep this kind of default X button. I'm just going to add kind of a light gray background to make it a little bit more visible. And when the item is hidden, I have this just kind of white icon button or information button that I'd created. So now when a user clicks on this button here, the instructions will pop up. When I click on it again, the instructions will close. All right, so there are a few other small tips in this dashboard that I didn't have time to get to today, but you can download the workbook from Tableau Public. Just search for my name, it's Brian Moore. Go to my profile and you'll see a dashboard that looks like this. There's also a very detailed blog post going over all of these steps and the ones that I wasn't able to get to on sonsofhierarchies.com. If you just go to sonsofhierarchies.com, I think it's probably on the second page, you'll see an image that looks like this, and that'll be the blog post. So that's all I have for today. I'm not sure if we have time for questions or not. I'll leave that up to you. If we do, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is bmorewstaken, or on LinkedIn. Just search for Brian Moore. There's a lot of Brian Moores. It's a pretty common name, but here's my my link. But all right, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Let's see. So we're really hurting for time. I don't know if we want to take it for a vote whether we put off the contest, although there's probably some people who came today just for that. Although we didn't announce it, did we?
We can do it next month. It'll
Yes.
take 10 minutes to do it.
Yeah, I've got pretty much
Let's
a.
do it next month.
Okay, so everyone come back next month and we'll have a quiz where if you win, you will be you will get a year of Tableau training. It's the elearning.tableau.com. And it is valid for 12 months. We'll give you the
12
code.
months. 12 months subscription.
Yeah, 12 months from activation. So
Yeah.
only
Okay.
activate when you're ready to get started.
Okay, just a couple things before we sign off. Alyssa did leave. Alyssa wanted to speak. Alyssa's from Ale Smith. She wanted to speak. She has this job opening. Really good job at Ale Smith. We put the link in the chat. If somebody's looking for a job, it's a great opportunity here in Nashville. The other thing that Nick mentioned previously is we're sending a call out for speakers. If you have a topic that you want to speak on, we want to hear about it. Because we're now planning out in May, June, July, that time frame. Nick put the link in the chat for the speaker application. Just grab the link, fill out the form, let us know that you want to speak and what topic you want to speak on, because we'd sure love to hear you speak here in Nashville. And the one other thing is we are looking for at least one more person who wants to get involved with the leadership team. And if you have any desire to do that, we would also like to hear, from you.
Yep. And next month we'll have Christy McGee, another tug leader, talking about collapsible containers. So you saw a bit of that today with Brian Moore. She's got other use cases to show you, other ways that you might unlock your creativity regarding that particular feature. And then also we'll have somebody from the Tableau development team at Tableau Software showing us web data connectors. That's something I haven't had a chance to play with, so that'll be interesting. Also in our community spotlight, Stephanie Richardson will mention that community and how to get involved. Let's see if that is, yeah, we're 1 minute after. Apologize for getting right up to the gun there, but I'm glad y'all came. Hope this was useful. I'm going to be referring to the YouTube once it's out there, and we'll put that on the event page once it's available, as well as LinkedIn and via email. So if you RSVP'd for this, you should get that through our email servicing. So yeah, I would open it up for announcements, but we don't have time. So feel free to email us. We can email the community on your behalf if you've got job opportunities that you'd like everyone to know about. And yeah, again, just glad you all came.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank